right. Let's start off by saying Barak Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Racha Kudash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is You Be the Judge. I'm joined with Elder Kanak.
Shalom.
And before we get started, we did a lesson the other day. The lesson had to be, I think, a little over an hour long. Maybe, it was called The False Prophets Are Back. And I guess somewhere down the line, the Elder Kanak, he noticed that there was 0 views. But, we thought they were just messing with the numbers. With the views, like, as they always do. But what happened was only like 5 minutes and some change of that video recorded. And I didn't even know actually till yesterday. I looked at it, I said, wait a minute, it's only 5 minutes long. 5 minutes and some change. So I don't know what happened. That never happened before on the stream. I don't know if it was just something that they didn't like. We were in a bad area. I don't know. Because I've been recording. I mean, sometimes, in these lives, walk and talk, some stuff gets dropped out. You expect that because, you're going through different areas, but for the whole lesson just to drop out like that, it was a little suspicious. Mm-hmm. Like that character.
Yeah. He probably did something.
Yep. All right, so, the lesson is You Be Judge. And pretty much that's the title that came to me yesterday. I wanted to do this lesson yesterday, but Spirit, didn't want it to come out. Because every time I try to get to it, something kept coming up. So, there's been videos being put up. First video that I had watched a couple of days ago was George Salente, and he was speaking about the atrocities that are going on over there that these small hats are doing to the Palestinians, and he said, you don't hear anything about it on the news. There's nothing on the news about it. They're not talking about it, how the travesties and the devastation that's going on. He said, but what did make the news was the Mexican ship that crashed, that the mast crashed into the Brooklyn Bridge and 2 people died. That made big headline news. But meanwhile, people are being slaughtered left and right, men, women, children, and no mention of it, And then I was watching the Elder Yashawamba. He was doing the video, speaking on those things too. And, the thought was coming to mind that, when you read the scriptures, the scriptures identify nations. And the scriptures identify, prophetically, and also it gives certain traits of these particular nations. And the main nation that we talk about are the Edomites. And when you look on the planet, right, and you look at the amount of damage, and murders, deaths, so on and so forth that have been committed upon the planet Earth. In fact, get Revelation 6, and you can start around, I believe it's 2 or 3, Red Horse. When you look at around the planet and look at the atrocities, and the, taking of lives and the destruction of lands and destruction of, ecosystems, so on and so forth, it all leads back to the so-called white men, which are the biblical Edomites. Now, in saying that, not every single so-called white person that you see is an Edomite, because you have some so-called white-looking people that are Israelites. You have some so-called white-looking people that are Hamites. You have some so-called white-looking people that are Ishmaelites, so on and so forth. It all depends on where the line goes back to. This is why you have, those Israelites out there, that are considered the speckled bird Israelites. Okay? So you can understand there's many lessons on that. Oh, and another thing too, the elder Manata Zakba had sent a question that was posed on the Apostles Live. I believe it was this past week, if I'm not mistaken. And there was a question that came up about the four beasts, I think it was, or angels, or the four beasts, or something along those lines in the book of Revelation, the 4th chapter. And pretty much those are angels. You know, those four beasts are four angels. And you know, I was gonna do a lesson on it, but you know, like he said, like brother said, you know, we've done lessons on it, you know, but that's talking about the four angels. And the backup scripture to that would be Ezekiel, the 1st chapter, which it describes the angels in the same fashion. So I just wanted to say that, you know, not that I didn't want to get to it, it's just, you know, Spirit hasn't hit me to do a lesson on it yet. So if the elder feels compelled to jump on it, you know, he can, which you know, he's on everything. So, you know what I mean? There ain't too much that brother misses through the Spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Al Shai. Barakatah Yahweh Bashem Al Shai for that. Gone.
Yeah,
so let's get it.
Okay, this is
just to recap, when you look at the atrocities of the world, you know, the murder, death rate around the planet, most of it, a good portion of it, matter of fact, to a whole Psalm 73, you weigh the violence of your hand on the earth, something like that. You know, the majority of these atrocities are being committed by Esau, the so-called white man. You know, whether they do it directly or indirectly. And what I mean by that, the international banking families, which are Edomites, they control the majority of what goes on the planet. And they're behind the scenes manipulating leaders of different countries to commit such acts. So whether directly or indirectly, they're the ones involved in all of the chaos that's going on the earth. One of their mottos is what? Order out of chaos. You know, so order out of chaos, order out of chaos. You see? So when you did you find it?
Yeah, it's Psalms. You said Psalm
73.
I believe is it 58? Psalms 58.
That's a good one, but the one in Psalm 73 speaks about waters of a full cup of wrung out to him. I think it says something along the lines of about the earth, something like that.
Yeah, this is Psalm 73.
You can start at 4. I think it starts, but then jump to the verse. You know, when we read a couple of verses, jump down to that verse.
This is Psalm 73 and 4. For there is no bands in their death.
Start at 3.
Yep. Verse 3. For I was envious at the foolish when I saw the prosperity of the wicked.
Right. And who's the prosperous one? The rich man. Who's the rich man? Or the rich man? The rich men. The international banking families, which are Edomites. So he said he was pretty much envious at them. You know, because he saw them prospering. They're committing all type of wickedness, and yet they still living good.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it says, for there is no bands in their hand. For there is no bands in their death.
Right, they don't, you know, they're not destroyed like that. You know, when you see the so-called Palestinians, or you see the Lord bring certain plagues or destruction or devastation on a nation, then people be getting jacked up in bunches. But Esau somehow, some way, is not affected that way. And there's a reason for it, because at the end of the day, the Lord is saving the worst for last.
Mm-hmm. It says, but their strength is firm.
Mm-hmm.
They are not in trouble as other men.
Right, their strength is firm because they have control of the planet. They have control of the economy. You know, they have one of the strongest militaries on the planet. You know, so they're not, and it says they're not in trouble as other men. They don't suffer like other men. With the other nations, dealing with Jake and the other nations. Go ahead.
Yep, it says they are not in trouble as other men, neither are they plagued like other men.
Right, they're not plagued like other men. You know, they don't. Do you think that the Rothschilds or the Rockefellers or any of those international banking families, they're sitting thinking about how they're going to eat? Or do you think they have the debate of, I got to see if I'm going to pay the rent this month or put food on the table? You know, we either going to starve or we're going to, be homeless. They're not plagued like that. They don't have problems like that.
Yeah, their thought in that regard is, how can we make more people suffer? How can we make more people homeless? How can we create famines and then just blame it on natural disasters or blame it on climate change?
Yeah.
You know, it says Therefore, pride compasseth about them as a chain. Violence covereth them as a garment.
Right, because it says violence covered them as a garment. And that is one of their MOs, is violence. Matter of fact, before you read on, just remember the verse you're on. You're at. Let's go to Revelation 6 now. I believe it starts at 3. And then let's read some of that, and then we'll come back to this. Because these are hints, clues, keys in the scriptures to let us know, or identify, especially in these times, who these particular people that the scriptures speak about or call the wicked are. Now Elder Pastor mentioned, right, who is the king in Deuteronomy 28:36, right? Now, when you read it, it says that the Lord is going to bring a nation against you, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known. You see? So, back then, we knew about the Assyrians. We knew about the Babylonians, the Egyptians. We knew about all those different nations back then. But coming up into the future, we didn't know about this time here and these devils that were going to destroy us in this time. We didn't know that was going to happen. So that's what is going into. And the king, of course, is King David. When you put it up, when you put the pieces together, the right way, the way the white men don't want you to get it.
Revelation,
to say that.
Revelation 6:3. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, "Come and see." And there went out another horse that was red.
Right. So now the horse, when you see the term horse, sometimes it's talking about the actual horse. Sometimes it's speaking about power. Like you have cars, horsepower, right? They're not actual horses in the engine, but it's powered by horsepower. You see? Go ahead.
Yep.
And this particular horse happens to be red. Why did it identify it as red? Because this is a clue or an identity of the people that it's speaking about. And who in the scriptures is identified as being red? The Edomites.
Yep. It says, and there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth.
And that's the point. Power was given unto him to what?
To take peace from the earth.
That's it. To take peace from the earth. So what does that mean? Matter of fact, go to Proverbs 29 and 2, and then we could jump to the 16th verse and come back to that. And if you have anything you want to say, add on. Feel free. Any precepts come to mind? So they're the ones that's taking away the power from the earth. They're the ones that have the earth at the brink of destruction. They're the ones that have the people of the earth in a total chaotic, desperate mind state. Because they're the landlords of the earth right now. The earth is given into their hands. So they were supposed to be the ones that kept the order, the rule. They were supposed to be the ones that kept everything running correctly. But they destroyed it.
Yeah, they were given the stewardship of the earth.
Yep.
And they did not properly handle the Lord. The earth is the Lord's.
Yep.
So he's given it to them, and they have basically he's coming back and seeing that it's all out of order. The house that he has created is a mess. Esau, the earth abided forever, so the earth is supposed to be forever, but he's bringing the earth to the point of destruction.
Yep.
What type of landlord is that? What type of manager is that? Okay.
And that's why the Lord says he's going to make inquisition, what they be which have pretty much have hurt the earth, have hurt the Lord's creation unjustly.
Yeah, with their deeds and their works.
That's right.
Okay. Proverbs 29 and 2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked bear rule, the people mourn.
Right, and that's why I said he came to take peace from the earth. When people are mourning in the earth, there's no peace. No, there's no peace of mind. There's just no peace, period. And ever since these devils took over the planet, there's been nothing but endless wars. So how much more proof do you people need, to know that these devils are the Edomites? Let's go back to, matter of fact, read the
16?
Yeah, read the 16th verse, and then we'll go back to Revelation 6.
Yep. Verse 16, when the wicked are multiplied, transgressions increaseth, but the righteous shall see their fall.
So now what are transgressions? Transgressions are, the breaking of the law. So when the wicked are multiplied, transgression increases. And we know by scriptures, by prophecy, that when the Greeks, which are Edomites, came into power, that's when wickedness started to really increase. Because wickedness was always around. But when the wicked, started to rule, that's when wickedness started to explode on the earth. Because the earth right now is being run really by Esau. And look what they're doing. Look at the mindset of the people. Look at the sexual depravity. The lewdness. Just the folly that's out here. The devastation and destruction and the destructive mindset and lifestyle of these people. Where the hell you think they get that from? They get that from America, that harlot.
Yeah, because they've drunken of that wine, and it has made them drunken. It has opened them up to be, basically to leave their old ancient ways, which were more in line with righteousness, which they were still going off, but it wasn't at the point to where you have this man Esau, which he's lawless.
Yep.
He has all these laws on book, in his society, but none of them really go back to the scriptures.
Yep.
He does his own thing, and the other nations they liken their countries and make it, try to be like Esau, basically.
Oh yeah. And now when you go to the book of 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter, when it speaks about then shall the wicked be revealed, the word wicked there goes back to the word lawless. As the elder just mentioned, they're lawless. That's why the Lord said unto the wicked, the Lord says, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes, or that thou shouldest take my covenants in thy mouth, seeing thou hatest instruction and castest my words behind thee. So they don't, govern, rule, or judge by the words of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. They govern and rule by their own penal laws, by their own, statutes. But what they do is they use the Lord's word to put the facade out there, because they know that people will listen to. If you say Bible, if you say it's in the scriptures, like my man Carnegie said, they'll listen to it if it says it in the word. So they know this. So that's why they use the Most High. They use the book, but then when it comes down to judging, they don't judge according to what's written.
Yep, back in Revelation 6:4 it says, and there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword.
Right, and they should kill one another, and you see that happening. Civil wars that have happened and will happen. He was given a great sword. Now, when you go back to the word sword, Psalm 17:13 says that the Most High is, that these devils are the Most High sword. Then when you go back to the blessing of who got the sword, what nation got the sword, it was the Edomites. Esau got the sword. And what did Isaac tell him? He said, by thy sword shalt thou live, or something along those lines. And matter of fact, let's get there.
Okay.
Genesis 27:38. So we don't butcher it. Sometimes the scriptures will come clear. Sometimes it's sketchy. Sometimes you could paraphrase it, but it's always good to read it when if you have the opportunity.
This is Genesis 27 and
38.
38. And Esau said unto, we'll go straight.
Okay.
And Esau said unto his father, hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth. Right,
thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth. Now you cannot tell me that these devils are not living it up. When you go to these beginning with the international banking families, they have palaces and mansions, and they have land as far as the eye can see. They have vineyards, they have physicians. They deal with the herbs. They don't deal with the hospitals, although they created the hospitals. They don't go to the doctors. When they feel ailments, they don't go to the urgent care, to go get checked out, see what's wrong with them.
You got somebody that come directly to them with all the money and resources to get anything that they need in abundance.
That's it.
So they can continue to do their task that the Most High has given them. That's why the Lord has them in particular health, and that's why they don't have the worries of say us or the other people worrying about financial stress and all that. Their mind is geared towards the Most High task, and that is to bring death on this earth, and ultimately to bring in His new system so the Lord can destroy that.
Yeah, and the Lord protected those devils. That's why He said, that anyone that killeth Cain, they'll be judged 7 times or something along those lines. There's an account it was a chief. I forget the chief's name, and pretty much, it was dealing with George Washington. Now George Washington, he was a real devil, right? Bill Clinton back in the days. He was out there, and he was trying to get away from Gad, and Gad was shooting the chief said that he had expert, arrowmen, Gad, and he said they were shooting arrows at the devil, and them arrows kept missing him. He said the great Creator is protecting this man, because they had to do what they had to do. That's why these devils were able to escape, from a lot of different destructions, because they had to be here to fulfill prophecy in the end. Not Japhet.
The Most High, he preserved Esau, so He's not letting anything really happen to these devils like that.
Right.
Until He comes down with that final judgment. That's when Satan is going to be, that protection, that hedge that Satan got over him, is going to be disannulled.
Yep.
Okay? But that's only from Yahweh Shema Shai, which put that force field, if you will, to preserve these damn devils. Okay?
Oh, yeah, that's why I said they're not in trouble as other men. So let's go back. That was it, right?
No. We still got a little more.
Okay.
It's Genesis 27:40.
Oh, yes, a lot.
It says, "And by thy sword shalt thou live."
And by thy sword shalt thou live. That's how you're gonna get this, get the fatness of the earth.
And shall serve thy brother.
Right, and that happened. Well, go ahead, read on.
And it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck.
Right, and that happened already. Going back to the time of the kings. All right. So that's a whole nother lesson in itself. Because at one point Esau had kings among themselves after they broke away from Judah. They set up kings among themselves. They had like a small little empire, or not an empire, a small little kingdom amongst themselves.
It says, "And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob."
And to this day, they hold that same energy all the way to today. So let's go back to Revelation 6, finish that out. And let's go back to Psalm 73, where you left off, read some of that. And then we'll hit the main scripture.
God. Revelation 6:4, "And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they shall kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword."
Okay, so let's go back to, is there more? That's it, right?
That was pretty much,
Okay.
that was.
So let's go back to Psalm 73. So with that great sword is how he took peace from the earth. This is why once the US dollar was made the reserve currency of the world, what backed that power? The military. That's why he was lending out the military back then. Like, I don't know all the specifics. I'm not an expert on the military, of Esau and all that. But, that it was backed by the military and the protection of America, hegemony. And it was also, eventually, it was protected by the oil, the petrodollar.
That's it.
So go ahead.
Psalm 73, I'll read 6 again. "Therefore pride compasseth them about as a chain, Violence covers them as a garment.
Right, violence covers them as a garment. So everywhere this devil goes, there's violence, there's destruction. They have a destructive aura and energy about them. You know how you have these jakes, you know, in the hood, that no matter what, they just can't get right. They just have a destructive way about them. Everything they do is just destructive. You know, they destroy themselves, they destroy the people around them, their friends, their families, and all that. Well, that's Esau as a nation.
Yeah, that's toxicity. That you know, they call it you're toxic.
Yeah.
You're like, no matter what, like, you'll just mess up any relationship, whether it's you know, with your family, with, you know, job relationships, anybody that you're around, coworker. You're so toxic. You have those toxic behaviors. You think negative.
Yep.
You do negative things. You eat negative food. You hang around negative crowds, and it's like there's nothing that you can do to get that person out of that state. Well, that's Esau, like the Bible said. That's Esau as a nation.
Yeah.
This is why Yahushua cursed out the wicked Jakes.
Yep.
Said, "Ye are of your father the devil," because you were taking on the same characteristics as Esau.
Yeah.
When you were made to be separate and holy, to be righteous. The law was supposed to bring you to, you know, to Yahushua as a, you know, the schoolmaster.
Yeah.
And to be upright, be holy as your father is holy.
Right.
You know, I am holy, right? And holy meaning separate. But Jake took on that characteristic of Esau as rebellion.
Yep.
You know, because he just can't get right.
That's it.
Okay.
It says, and the lust of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning and abode not in the truth. And then in Proverbs 12, it says, you know, the righteous are more excellent than his neighbor, but the ways of the wicked seduce them. You know, so Jake has been seduced to the point where here it is, you in your lowest state. You know, just dealing with the tribe of Judah. In the lowest state that you're in, you're still great. But then you still got to, you know, bow down to this devil. You know, the scriptures say, why trimmest thou thy ways to seek love? You know, here it is, in the condition, low condition you're in, you are great. You excel over anybody, even the other tribes. And you still got to bow down to this devil. Make that make sense.
Make that make sense. Well, it makes sense. It makes sense when you go back into the prophecies.
Boom.
When you go back into the book, you go back into the curses. That's the only thing that does make sense.
That's it.
Okay, because through man's logic, no, it doesn't make sense. It's like what's wrong with these people?
Yep.
You know, and that's why these other nations they really call us like a no people.
Yeah.
You know, this what is in that? Lamentations.
Yep. 2.
Lamentation, the 2nd chapter.
Yeah. This the city.
Yep. The city
that called the perfection of beauty. How has she become a desolation among the nations?
That's
something
it.
Like that.
That's it. Yep. Verse.
Yeah, and you know, when we go into the book of Deuteronomy 28 on the curses, you know, these Christian apologists, they get their panties in a bunch. You know, because they'll never make those small hats prove that they're the Israelites based on what the scriptures say. It's all about the Balfour Declaration, and they're in the land right now, and they're being persecuted. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're doing the persecuting.
Verse 7, their eyes stand out with fatness. They have more than heart could wish.
Right, so who does that fit? Their hearts stand out with fatness. They have more than heart could wish. But yet they still want more and more. Habakkuk 2. You know, they still want more. They're like the scriptures say in Habakkuk, right? It says that they enlarge their desire as hell and are not satisfied. And in the book of Proverbs, it says that hell is never full, which is the grave. You know, no matter how, there's always going to be somebody that dies until Yahushua comes back and, you know, redeems us. You know, but the nations are still going to die, but there's always going to be death around. You know? So as long as death is around and as long as the earth is going to be filled with, that's how Esau is with his insatiable ways of gaining riches and gaining power and control over the whole planet. This is why ultimately they want to microchip everybody, which is the MOTB.
Yep, it says, they are corrupt and speak wickedly concerning oppression. They speak lawfully. Yeah,
they speak loftily because they're proud. You know, this is why you have a devil like Noah, what's his name?
Noah Yuval Harari.
Yeah, Noah Yuval Harari saying that, you know, they can piss the Most High off as much as they want, you know, because they have the power now to, you know, manipulate the weather, so they don't need the Most High anymore. You know?
Yeah, if the Lord sent a drought they have technology to pump water out of the ocean and convert it into clean drinking water. So why do they need the Most High? They're the new gods. You know, that's the mindset that Esau Edom has in his mind. He really believes that he is like the Most High, and so much so that, yep, he has technology to be able to destroy the Most High. You know, that's just an individual like that, you just got to destroy.
Oh yeah.
Because even after his slavery, you can't allow him to be let loose anymore. You have to completely destroy him. You have to exterminate him. And that's exactly the plan of the Heavenly Father after Esau serves his hardcore bondage under the Israelites.
Yeah, and even after this destruction right now, we left off straight.
We're gonna stay.
You know, even after the destruction, it says that they're not going to repent
Yep.
of their murders and their sorceries and all of that.
They're blasphemies.
Their blasphemies. So they're going to keep it going.
Yep. It says they set their mouth against the heavens. See?
Yep.
And their tongue walketh through the earth.
Right, and that goes hand in hand with Revelation 13. You know, they set their hands against the heavens, you know, and pretty much they blaspheme the heavens. And it says, and what? And his tongue?
And their tongue walketh through the earth.
Right, and their tongue walking through the earth. That's that cup, you know, that they're pushing, their agenda that they're pushing on the planet. And they're pushing it on who? On the leaders of the people. And the leaders of these different nations are the ones that's pushing it to the citizens of those nations. See? And making them drunken like America is drunken.
Yeah, and they're not saying, hey, would you like to drink this? Now they're forcing it down everybody's throat.
Yep.
Just like this system that's being set up, this digital system of control, this blockchain system.
Yep.
This is not something that the people voted for, but this is something that it has been pressed upon them without their will, without their consent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's because if you don't accept this way, you know, if you don't accept this way, then you're not going to be able to get these benefits.
Yeah, because they believe themselves to be the masters of the universe.
Yep.
You had a devil that said that recently. I forget what devil that was, where he likened the white man as the master of the universe. And they really truly believe that. Yeah. You know, movies like Guardian of the Galaxy and shit, you know, Star Trek and, you know, stuff like that, where they going to different universes and conquering people. Nah, Esau, you're going to be down here on the earth in captivity very soon.
Yep. The cartoon He-Man. You know, I think they made a movie out of it. Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, that's it.
You know, and they have the dude that played the main character, his name was Adam, before he became, I forgot his name. No, but he was Adam. Trying to say that goes back to Adam. He had blonde hair.
See?
Edomite with blonde hair. I think he had blue eyes.
Yeah, blonde hair, blue eyes. Big dude.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, so pretty much, you know, that's what they're saying. They're saying that they're the masters of the universe, you know? And anything that goes against their narrative, they want to push it down and crush it, because that will destroy that theory. Because it is a theory, just a theory. It's just a theory, man. You know, it's just a theory, and it will crush their theory if it came out who the real Israelites are. Because that's what they've been. Because you have Edomites in America that claim to be Israelites, and they teach pretty much what we teach, except they teach that all so-called Edomites are the Israelites. And that salvation is only for the Israelites, which they're correct on. Salvation is only for the Israelites, but they're not the Israelites. Although you do have some of them that look like Edomites that are Israelites. And that's going to mess up a lot of you guys out there that only look at skin color and only look at the outward appearance. It's going to come back to bite you in the ass.
Yep, it says, therefore his people were turned hither, and waters of a full cup are wrung out to them.
Yeah, so they'll go around the earth, policing the earth, taking the resources, come back, and they'll wring everything out, even the little bit of water that's left. You know, and you'll wring it. In other words, they won't leave you shit.
Damn.
They want it all. Okay, they want it all. They don't want to leave people with nothing. Remember what your man said, cotton swab. That's what the elder Mawan Gabar calls him. He said, "You will own nothing and you will be happy." You know.
And they say, how does the Most High know? And is there knowledge in the Most High?
Yeah.
Behold, these are the ungodly who prosper in the world.
Right. These are the ungodly who prosper in the world. You know, they don't think that the Most High sees them. And they're so demented that they really believe in their demonic heart of hearts that the Most High is with them, that the Lord is really with these plans that they got. And you know what? To a certain degree, the Lord is, because he's allowing you this. Man's goings are of the Lord. But what they don't understand, as we're going to break it down, it said that the Asaph said that the Lord set him up in slippery places. You know, you at that pinnacle, right? Almost at the point where you want to be at, but don't understand that the moment that you cross into the uncharted territory of the MOTB, you know, and making that micro C-hip, you know, mandatory, that's when the Lord's gonna bring you down.
That's it. That's it.
He gonna hit you with the ooh-wee. He gonna mollywop you. You know, he gonna paint, you know, America red, so to speak.
Well, it was all a trap from the beginning. Yeah, the Lord was with you to fulfill particular plans of his, but it was also that he can show his power. Like when you read Romans the 9th chapter, you weren't set up to rule the earth forever. You were set up to be destroyed, to be lifted up. Pride, what they say, pride is an MFer. You know, it can have you, like these women, right? A perfect example, these women, they're delusional.
Yeah.
They're literally delusional. That is the characteristic of Esau. Esau is literally delusional. But he's been winning for so long that he's like, damn, I can't lose.
Oh yeah.
So anything that comes, like anything that comes to Esau minds, he just believes it. Oh, that's the spirit of Satan. Let's just go with it. You know, and then he's been successful overthrowing governments.
That's it.
He's been successful for extracting resources out of these nations. He's been successful at bugging out the whole earth. So he's like, well, I everything I touch, it wins. So I'm the house. Like they say, the house wins. I'm the house. I'm always going to win. The system is rigged. The system is set up. But you don't understand that the Most High, he's the house.
That's it.
He set you up. He put you, as we're going to read, in slippery places. Once you finally actually understand the spiritual understanding of the Most High's plan. All right.
Yeah, and their contribution to the earth has been destruction, devastation, you know, sorrow, famine, death, you know, plagues, everything, you know, that's bad. You know, they show that outwardly. You know, in the street. You know, they show that outwardly because they are the wicked. You know, so the wicked ruling are not going to show righteous traits. They may try to use righteous traits, you know, to gain certain grounds, but ultimately, you know, their true intentions are going to be made manifest eventually.
It says, behold, these are the ungodly who prosper in the world. They increase in riches. Verily, I have cleansed my heart in vain and washed my hands in innocency.
Right, because, you know, it does feel that way. Sometimes, damn, man, you know, we're trying to do the best we can. You know, we're wicked, we're effed up, you know, but we try to do the best we can, and we getting jacked up. You know, we all, you know, messed up and always in need, and you know, sometimes sickly, sometimes, you know, whatever, you know, the car breaks down, or this happens, or that happens, you know. But these devils, they're the wicked. They're doing all kind of wicked shit, and they're living it up. But no, that's just the way the Lord set it up for them. And before the truth, we didn't have an understanding of that, and the reason why. All we just knew about was about our low condition that we wanted to elevate out of. You see? But read on.
And if I could just make a point, you know, and it shows us that the Most High is really the one who puts you in those positions.
Right.
Whether you're on the bottom or whether you're on the top.
Beautiful.
And there's nothing that you can do if you're on the bottom to make yourself come to the top. And there's nothing that you can do if you're on the top to be at the bottom. Everything has been preordestined. And see, that's what we did not acknowledge.
Right.
We did not acknowledge that it was the Most High that put us above all these other nations.
Right.
And it wasn't our own attributes, our own wisdom and knowledge that got us to where we want to be. Because you have a lot of Jakes that have very great ideas, but it doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
Jake can take over with the different innovations that our people, you know, create, and all the inventions, but the Most High ain't gonna let go nowhere.
Yeah.
All right, because the Lord did not set you up to win in the society.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jake has a lot of very good business ideas, but it's just not gonna prosper because of the curses. You know.
Psalm 73 and 14. For all the day long have I been plagued and chastened every morning.
I begin to kicked every morning. Go ahead.
Yeah. It says, if I say I will speak thus, behold, I should offend against the generation of thy children.
Right, because when we tell Jake out there, they're instead of them, being in this condition we're in, right? Instead of them, sympathizing, considering, or vibing, say, yeah, no, they come against us. They talk about us like if we was the wicked.
Damn.
Like just basically just dealing with the truth. And the Hebrew Israelites, GMS, we've been deemed like the worst camp out there. So much so that weird everything that's wrong with the Israelites is all GMS's fault. You had that interview with Vocab with that couple, right? And then he was asking her what was the reason, what did they do to her to make her want to leave or something along those lines? Were they pushed upon us, the wifely duties and the this duty, And I'm listening. I said, well, there's nothing wrong with that, But then eventually, Vocab said, well, we Christians, we do the same thing. We value family, this, that, and the other, not like GMS. Like everything that's wrong with Israel is our fault.
Yeah, they want to bring you back into the captivity of Jesus Christ.
Oh yeah.
Which has destroyed our people. Now you said something. You said that they don't vibe with us when we speak about these different things. Being in the same condition, it's not like we're in a higher position and we're about these things. Well, let me put this out. This is Matthew 11:16. But whereunto shall I liken this generation?
Yeah.
It is like unto children sitting in the markets and calling unto their fellows.
Yep.
And you can.
So pretty much that's us. We're out there in the market, because when you look at the word market, it goes back to the word agora, which is the place of business. When you teach, these are the places of business. The agora, the agora back in the days was open. Now, when you go back to, I think 200 AD in the future, somewhere about there, maybe a little before that, you had Hadrian. Will we go across it?
Yeah, just cross the other side.
All right. You had Hadrian, right, which was a Jake. Now, Hadrian, who was a Jake, he had something called the Hadrian Mall. So malls are not new to America. They're not new to the world. You had like mountainsides with like doors, storefronts, right, and carved out, and people would set up their businesses in there and sell, whether it was food, whether it was fabrics or whatever the case may be, spices, so that's nothing new. But the agora is something that you go to outwardly. It's a public meeting place. So we're out here in the public telling Jake why they are in the condition that they're in, and that the reason why is because of the curses, and that that we are the greatest people on the planet Earth. We're just going through a chastising right now, but there's going to be vindication. The Lord's going to come and deliver us, and they got a problem with that. We're viewed to them as their
Yep.
But yet the devil, he keeps pounding you, pounding you and pounding you, and destroying you and murdering you, and feeding you this food that's totally destroying you. But they're all right with you.
Well, the scriptures say that Israel, they're a seed of evildoers.
Yep.
They're corrupters. So honestly, they can't get it. They like the pounding from Esau.
Oppression.
They like the oppression. They trust in oppression.
Yeah.
So they actually get offended when we bring out the truth. Like Paul said, have I therefore become your enemy because I told you the truth? And that's exactly what we're seeing today, what we're experiencing today. We're just bringing out the facts of the reality of the matter. And Jake actually gets offended at the reality because they want to live in a delusion. They want to live in an augmented reality in which the so-called white man is over them perpetually, and they love it.
Yep.
Because they get cheap liquor, cheap entertainment, And ultimately, because really the Most High rejected a bitch ass.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, you know, and before we understood about this truth, you know, it could be a very hard thing to swallow and accept if you don't have the proper understanding as to why Jake is like that. You know, because they're blinded. You know, because you'd be like, damn, what the fuck's wrong with these motherfuckers? You know, here it is, I'm telling you what's going on. You know, you see what's happening, but you like looking at me like I'm the enemy. And that's what Asaph was pretty much pouring his heart out in this song.
And then just kind of referencing that, going into the book of Ezekiel, there's two, I believe it's the second chapter, it could be the third chapter, where the Lord was basically like, hey, if I would have sent you to the other nations, they would have listened.
Yep.
Would show you there's something wrong with these people. But the only way to understand that, as we're going to read down in Psalm 73, is you have to come into the congregation of Yahweh Basham Shai. That's the only way.
That's it.
Because without the understanding through the Holy Spirit, you will be
off track. I'm just trying to think of the
there we
term.
go. That's it. Well, off track. You'll be off track. Your mind would not be stable enough to understand the spiritual thing, that this is all spiritual and how the Most High set things up. Okay?
Yeah.
Let me finish this. Matthew 11. And
so we out here telling them this and they ain't accepting it.
It says, and saying, we have piped unto you and ye have not danced.
Right, so you didn't get involved. Another one that's good with that goes with that is Ezekiel the 33rd chapter. You know where they come as my people come and oh man, Shalom, Kwam Yashala, yeah. But then when they leave, they don't continue on in what they were taught. It's like in James it says, it's like a man beholding his natural face in the mirror, and then when he leaves, he forgets what type of man he is.
Damn.
And that's Jake. They're Kwam Yashala when it comes to being out in the public, on the comment board. But then behind the scenes, they're right back to that ninja mentality. Yeah, whether YN or ON.
Yep, because their heart is far from the Heavenly Father. Okay, it says, saying, we have piped unto you and ye have not danced. We have mourned unto you and ye have not lamented.
Yes, we have. Yeah, we have mourned unto you and you have not lamented. Because we're telling you what's going on. Giving you causes for you to really be, sad and oppressed and mournful about, and you're not mourning. If anything, you're partying and like, pretty much, disregarding and casting the Lord's word to the side.
And see, we don't get all flustered.
Yeah.
That happens because the Most High told us that's what's going to happen. I'm going to send you to these people, this rebellious people, and I want you to tell them this and that. But guess what? They ain't going to listen to you.
That's right.
And don't be dismayed at that. Still tell them.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what we're doing now. Okay.
Yeah, because the Lord said they ain't going to listen to me, so they ain't going to listen to you.
Yeah.
That's why I got to say, like in the school in Connecticut, we were reading through the book of Joshua, right? When Joshua, took over the position of Moses, right? And Haragaja, he was, goes back to the old school. He was sitting there, and when the brother read, I think it was the first chapter, they said, we're going to follow you just like we followed Moses. And he said it like a joke. He said, yeah, we're going to follow you just like we followed Moses. Which lets you know Jake ain't, Jake ain't going to listen to the Most High. What makes you think they're going to listen to the men of the Lord? Until the Lord started kicking them in the ass.
Then Proverbs, the first chapter.
Then, holy Jesus, Lord, please come and help me.
I'm going to read this. Verse 18, for John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say he has a devil. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, behold, a man gluttonous and a wine bibber.
So basically, you can't please Jake. No matter what you do, it's never good enough for Jake. They always, even if you're telling them something that's good and beneficial for them, they're going to always find a goddamn problem.
That's it. And even if the delivery, say you made it a soft delivery, Jake's still not going to respect the soft delivery. If you do a strong delivery, Jake is still not going to respect it. If you sit down with him and go over each precept, you break down each word, you go to Hebrew, you prove it over and over and over and over. Something. Oh, you said it wrong like there.
Yeah, Jake is very contentious and cantankerous.
It says, a friend of publicans and sinners, but wisdom is justified of her children.
It's because the elect won't be that way. Because the elect even though they're in the mindset of the rest of the world, when they're out in the world, when the Lord tap them with that word, they obey. Because it's already in them to obey. All they need is the activation.
That's it. That's it.
And that activation is the proper understanding of this word.
The breath.
The breath.
The Most High, he breathed into the elect and made the elect living beings.
Yep.
He gave them the understanding.
Yep.
With all I getting, get understanding, because you can have the knowledge, you can even have some of the wisdom, but if you don't have the understanding to tie those two together, then you don't have nothing. And over that, you need the fear of the Lord.
That's it.
So the Most High has not instilled the fear of the Lord into all of Israel. He's only done that to a select group of Israelites.
That's it.
The remnant, the elect. Okay.
That's it.
I'm back in Psalm 73.
It's all about the elect.
Psalm 73. I'm gonna read 15 again. If I say I will speak thus, behold, I should offend against the generation of thy children.
Yeah, so if we speak this way, we would offend against the generation of thy children. And that's when it becomes like, God damn, but now go ahead, read on. Because it's going to say, I can't say it better than the scripture says.
Right. When I thought to know this, it was too painful for me.
Right, when I thought to know this, it was too painful for me. It's like, damn, man, I can't win for losing.
You'll lose your whole family over the word coming out, man. They'll shun you and abhor you because you speak the words of Yah Basham Shai. Or you might just deny pork and shrimp. Just that act alone. Oh, he think he better than us. Or he think he holy. He think he know the scriptures.
Yeah.
And they don't have nothing to do with you. You lose your woman. Your children will turn against you. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
You become a supreme enemy if you deny somebody. They trying to cook you some pork and you deny them. You become their straight up enemy. Their mortal nemesis.
Yep. It says, until I went into the sanctuary. Let me read verse 16 again. When I thought to know this, it was too painful for me.
Yep, when I thought to notice, it was too painful for me. Go ahead.
It says, until I went into the sanctuary of the Most High, then understood I their end.
So now we're getting to the point, because they don't consider that latter end. It says that in the book of, matter of fact, get that. In,
Wisdom?
No, the one, Isaiah 47.
Okay, yeah.
I think it starts around 9, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. They did not take these things to heart.
Right, because you don't consider. Because you're all you're concerned with is the here and now, and the agenda, pushing your agenda forward. You don't consider what these, you don't consider the repercussions of your actions.
There's another one where it says Babylon thou art caught and was unaware.
If you want to get that one too.
But no, I can get this one.
Yeah.
This is this is Isaiah 47. And I believe I can start at 9.
Okay.
But these two things shall come to thee. Let me start at 8. Therefore, hear now this that are given to pleasures. All right.
And that ain't talking about America. I don't know what is.
No. I got to start. No, I skipped it. Verse 6. I was wroth with my people. I have polluted my inheritance and given them into thy hand.
And you see what they did all throughout the so-called Americas.
Thou didst show them no mercy.
Then you didn't show no mercy. Go ahead.
Upon the ancient hast thou very heavily laid thy yoke.
Right, and you put your yoke, physical yokes, and also the yoke of bondage and slavery. The hard, no matter how young or how old they were, they was in total, as long as they were able to, old enough to carry some, they was working. If they were old as hell, as long as they could walk or whatever, they were, you was making them work. So you showed no mercy.
Damn.
And the scripture said you shall have judgment without mercy that showed no mercy.
It says, and thou sayest, but really, spiritually, that was the Most High judging us. He put the spirit, that was the Most High's anger, being channeled through Esau.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're the Lord's whipping stick. And as Lord said, they don't bear the sword in vain.
So yeah, everything was justified, really.
Yep.
Isaiah 47:7, and thou sayest, I shall be a lady forever, so that thou didst not lay these things to heart, to thy heart, neither didst remember the latter end of it.
Right, you didn't lay this to your heart. You didn't consider any of this, and you didn't consider what would happen in the latter end of your actions. You know, you never thought that it would come back to catch up to you and bite you in the ass. But that's the times that we're coming to right now. We're coming down to the wire. That's why right now you're in your sentencing stage. And after the sentencing stage comes the judgment. All we're here to do is tell you what the Lord is going to do to you. And when the Lord is finished talking to you, then he coming to see you. Inside joke.
You want me to continue in Isaiah 47?
No, that's good.
Okay.
That's the main point.
I'll get this one in Jeremiah.
Bring it out.
This is Jeremiah 50:24.
And then we can hit Ezekiel and then, see where else the spirit.
I'll start at 23. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken?
Because you have power over the whole earth. But what happened was, through your traffic that you made yourself rich by, you also enriched the other nations. And those other nations, when they saw what you did, to Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and them other places in Japan, dropping bombs on them, they started investing their money, whatever it was, for agriculture, whatever, into their military.
Joel, the 3rd chapter.
That's it, building up their military. So now you just can't puff at them like you used to. And eventually you're going to be destroyed. The scriptures say you're going to be turned into a burnt mountain.
It says, how the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken, how has Babylon become a desolation among the nations?
Right, and ancient Babylon is not a desolation among the nations. All right, you still have people that are in those lands, businesses and homes. People still walk. It's not a desolation among the nations. This place here, America, Babylon the Great, is going to be a desolation among the nations. Never again will it ever be inhabited again, except but by desert creatures, unclean animals.
Verse 24,
birds.
I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken.
Right, I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken. So the Lord set you up in the trap. You in a quagmire, which, we got to go back to Psalm 73.
Yep,
you in a quagmire. Go ahead.
O Babylon, and thou was not aware.
Right, so you were so, you like that dog, with the bone in his mouth that saw his reflection in the water, and you was greedy, so you know what, I'm going to give me 2 bones. And you were so focused on that second bone that you dropped the first bone, and then you were left with no bones.
Well, is that in Psalms 50 where it says, thou thoughtest that I was altogether such as one as thyself?
Yep.
So you just said, oh no, the Most High, he with everything I do is good.
Yep.
So you didn't even, you just became a complete reprobate.
Oh, yeah.
And just whatever came to your mind, you did, and you were successful in it. Not knowing that the Most High was tallying up all your sins to ultimately come down and drop the hammer on your ass.
Yep.
Well, does you not do that in your court system?
Yep.
Where you'll watch a certain individual for several years and you'll build up a case against him.
Yep.
And then you'll come in with that indictment, and then you have a whole laundry list of things that this individual has done. You could have stopped them at number 2 and number 3, but you allowed them to build up this great case of crimes. So you can come down and throw the book at his ass and lock him under the jail. So this is what the Most High is going to do to you.
Oh yeah, because the Lord said that when it comes to us, he chastises us by measure, but he don't do that to the nations. He waits till their shit just go beyond and above and beyond, and then he comes and spanks them.
That's it.
And when he comes down, he ain't gonna let up.
It says, O Babylon, thou was not aware, thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against the Lord.
Right, and you can't fight against the Most High. Your arms are too short to box with God, as the saying goes.
So I'm back in Psalm 73. Right? Psalm 73.
Said that Babylon was unaware, right?
Psalm 73 and 17. Until I went into the sanctuary of the Most High, then understood I therein.
Yep.
Surely thou didst set them in slippery places.
Oh, now I understand that. Oh, ultimately, they're up there, they're living it up, but that was all for their destruction. So now we understand the plans of the Lord and the reason why it went down the way it went down.
Just like the ancient Egyptians.
Yep.
The Lord told Moses that the children of Israel were going to go into that land of Egypt for 400 years. And just so he can destroy Pharaoh and get a great name for him. You know, and he also allowed them Canaanites to be in that land, to build up that land. So when the Israelites come in, they can just inherit.
Yeah.
Everything was already set up. The vineyards were set up. The homes were, everything was already set up. Okay.
That's
It
right.
says, surely thou didst set them in slippery places. Thou castest them down into destruction.
Right. So you set them up in slippery places, you know, so where they're not able to really fully build themselves up to where they won't be destroyed. Because the agenda that they're pushing, which is prophecy, is going to be the thing that's going to destroy them. And the instrument or the weapon that they have, that they pretty much, you know, became a bully to the world with, is going to be the very instrument or weapon that the Most High is going to use to judge them.
And like, if you consider a slippery place, you know, you might be able to stand still in certain parts, say that slope, but ultimately you have to be very careful how you move, because you can fall all the way down.
All the way
So
down.
you can't fully, you know, have a stronghold. Esau never still fully has a stronghold in the earth. This is why he has to come with this MOTB system.
Yep.
And in his mind, that would be the final
Nail.
nail in the coffin. All right, boom, I cement it. I have perpetual rulership on the planet Earth forever, because I have the whole world on this system, and everybody has to be part of the system. Okay, but see, that's when you're about to do that. That's when the Most High is going to come and strike you out.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
He gonna pull the rug from underneath. He gonna pull the rug from up underneath you.
It says, surely, verse 19, it says, how are they brought into desolation as in a moment?
And as in a moment, because it's gonna be quick. You gotta understand, all of these hundreds of years of planning and building up and setting up their infrastructure throughout the earth, painstakingly, from nothing to this, is going to be wiped out in an hour.
They are utterly consumed with terrors.
They're utterly consumed with terror, because when those missiles start flying, that's going to bring nothing but terror. Should a trumpet be blown in the city and the people not be afraid? When them trumpets start blaring, you know, this is not a test. Russia and China and so have just launched their nuclear missiles. They're heading towards America. They'll be here in 15 minutes. You know, take cover in place. You know, if you have a basement or a shelter, go to those shelters. You know, none of that's going to help you. The only ones that's going to be pretty much protected in those shelters are these international bankers that are, in into other places in the world. Yeah. Other places around the world. You know, those are the ones that's going to be protected. And why? Because it's prophecy. You know? Yeah, I was getting a kick out of it.
God, me too. You see the little young Jay, he ain't trying to run.
Nah, he lazy.
All right.
Gotta get on him.
Yep. Verse 20, it says, as a dream when one awaketh, so, O Lord, when thou awakest, thou shalt despise their image.
Right, and how is the Lord awakening? Give me Habakkuk 3. And I believe it starts at 2. You know? Oh, and there's one in Psalms. Is that
What does it say?
Psalms where it says it's time for you to work, O Lord?
Oh, Lord. Yeah. So,
You know, Psalms, what is it, 100?
1 second.
You know? So this is how the Lord is awakened, by his prophecies. Okay, he said, though they tarry, meaning they're going to be dormant for a little while, but eventually they're going to awake out of that dormant sleep and start to speak, start to perform the things that the Most High said they would in these times.
Yeah, when we get the one in Psalms?
Yes, please.
Yeah, this is Psalms 119 and 126.
Okay.
It is time for thee, Lord, Yahweh Bashem Al-Shai, to work.
Right, it is time for the O Lord Yahweh Bashem Al-Shai to work.
Yep, it says, for they have made void thy law.
Right, so pretty much these devils, there's not much more they can do on the planet except for, finish pushing their agenda
That's it.
of the MOTB. But everything else they've done, every blasphemy that you could think of, every immoral thing you could think of, every depraved thing you could think of, every lewd sexual act you could think of, they've done it all. So there's not much more they can do,
Yep, outside of pushing this MOTB system heavy. You know,
That's
their last final, you know, push, you know, to bring the whole world into captivity. Okay, this is Habakkuk 3:2. It says, "O Lord, I have heard thy speech and was afraid. O Lord, revive the work in the midst of the years."
Right, revive thy works in the midst of the years. Because, you know, there was a certain particular time, you know, when the Lord, you know, would actually, bug out, right?
Yeah, just say something.
Yeah. You know, there's a particular time when the Lord said that these prophecies would start speaking. And it said they would start speaking where? At the end. And how would we know? Because the avenues and the infrastructure of receiving this message worldwide is already set up. The internet, satellites, you know, the word going out, you know, being broadcast throughout the four corners of the earth. And the Lord said, when this gospel goes to the four corners of the earth, then shall the end come. Obviously, Christianity, Islam, Roman Catholicism, Buddhism, Hinduism, all that is not the truth, or not the gospel, because they've been around worldwide for centuries, and still nothing.
Well, evil has multiplied, actually.
Yep.
You would think that more people would be in a better situation. There would be rejoicing, as we read in Proverbs 29th chapter.
Yep.
When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. So you would think through all these religions that the people would be rejoicing, right? Isn't Christianity all about God loving everybody? But why are these great evils still happening in the earth? Because it's all been a facade. Like, because really evil is behind all these movements.
That's
okay? Habakkuk 3, it says, revive the work in the midst of the years. In the midst of the years, make known, in wrath remember mercy.
Right, so when you bring this wrath, please remember mercy upon us. You know, because this place is doomed. It's going to be destroyed. There ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But, you know, the prophet Habakkuk was saying, when you bring this destruction, just remember mercy upon us in your wrath. You know, because he's not against the Lord bringing the destruction, but he, you know, he wants to be protected in that day. You see? Go ahead.
Yeah, you want me to continue on that? I'll go to Ezekiel.
Oh, yeah, let's finish out Ezekiel. Just go straight to the point. Start at the 5th verse. We're just going to read the 2 verses in.
Ezekiel 30.
And this is the point of, you know, you be the judge. Go ahead.
Ezekiel 35 and 5. Well, and this is speaking about, it speaks up when you read up, it says, "Oh, Mount Seir." So it's speaking about the government of Esau, Edom, starting at the wicked elite bankers, okay, and trickles down to the rest of you Edomites. So really, the government of Esau, the mountain. Ezekiel 35:5, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end. Therefore, as I live, said the Lord power, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Since thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee.
Right. So can you get that in NLT?
God.
You know, so since you hated blood, you didn't hate blood, blood is going to pursue you. So you're the one that's doing all of the bloodshed around the world. That's why it says, when you cease to deal treacherously, they shall deal treacherously with you.
That's it. Isaiah 33 and 1. This is Ezekiel 35 and 5 in the NLT. It says, your eternal hatred for the people of Israel led you to butcher them. Damn. When they were helpless. When I had already punished them for all their sins. As surely as I live, said the sovereign Lord, since you show no distaste for blood, I will give you a bloodbath of your own. God damn.
God damn. That's why it says, with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down and be found no more at all.
It says, your turn has come.
Your turn has come. Your days shall not be prolonged. You're at the end. You've been weighed in the balances and you have been found wanting. Now it's time for you to go down. So hurry up, push your demonic agenda so that the Lord can checkmate your ass.
That's it.
Anything else?
That's it.
So with that, we pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. Till the next time we say, Shalom.
Wait.